So this week, let's do something different. I love a good film. Well, who doesn't, right? And when a film talks about the brain, it always gets my attention. So I decided to go beyond the entertainment and do some fact-checking on a truly iconic brain power film. No, I'm not talking about Lucy. I love Luc Besson ever since he came out with The Big Blue in the 80s. But man, Lucy, yeah, that film is just pure science fiction. There's not an ounce of reality in it. No. Today, we're going to look at Neil Burger's 2011 Limitless, starring Bradley Cooper and the legendary Robert Deniro. If you haven't seen the film, it basically comes down to this. Bradley Cooper is this total loser and he ends up taking this super drug, NZT, and then suddenly he becomes a super uber genius. What is fact? What is fiction? Watch out. Spoilers ahead. Limitless. It's an interesting film. Why? Well, because it plays on a very common brain myth that we only use 10%. In the film, they actually say 20% of our brain. So right from the start, actually, that premise is wrong. But regardless of that, most of the newfound powers featured are intriguing because most of them not only make sense, but are an exaggerated version of what is possible. What is actually possible for someone taking his or her brain health seriously and optimizing how they use their brain. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. So let's start from the beginning.
You know how they say that we can only access 20% of our brain?
No, we're not using only 10 or 20% of our brain. Our brain is highly plastic. It adapts all the time. It cuts out connections we don't use and creates new ones. And this on a daily basis, actually. Our brain uses every single cubic millimeter available up there. Competition is fierce. It is ruled by the use it or lose it principle. So no, we do not use only 10 or 20% of our brain. We do use the full 100%. Well, not at the same time though, as it would overcharge our system. We would get a seizure and lose consciousness. So that's another good argument against this brain myth. You know, using 100% of our brain at any given moment would have us shut down. System overload. It's a physical impossibility. We do use the full 100%, but not at the same time. The different sections of our brain are used for different activities and emotions and processes. Well, just imagine feeling the full array of human emotions all at the same time. You know, like happy, sad, bitter, disappointed, ecstatic, nostalgic, euphoric, and more. And all that at the very same time. I mean, you see what I mean? System overload. It just wouldn't work. Now, having said that, most of us aren't using our brain in the best possible way. We are working against our brain all the time, mostly without realizing it. It's one of the reasons why I created the Brain Academy in the first place, to educate people about how to use their brain better. But let's get back to the film. So Bradley Cooper takes this pill.
How much worse could it get?
And suddenly everything changes. As he says in the film,
I was blind, but now I see.
He starts by getting some kind of out-of-body experience. Yeah, that's, well, let's put that on the count of creative visual storytelling, okay? I mean, he starts looking at himself as if he was an outsider. Yeah, sure, I can live with that. Next are the enhanced senses. He notices every single detail and the bigger picture at the same time. Well, that's what adrenaline does. It enhances our senses. It usually gets activated when under stress. So yeah, why not? The interesting part is, under stress, our prefrontal brain shuts down. Here, the analytical skill of our prefrontal cortex are running full power. Again, yeah, well, why not? It's an interesting premise. Next, he's suddenly extremely good with words. Now, don't forget this guy, the character in the film, is a writer. He is good at words. It's what he does for a living. So he just got writer's block. So this drug apparently unblocks him. Inhibition. Ventrolateral prefrontal cortex gets shut down apparently, and that's actually what happens during the flow state. So yeah, totally possible. Then he remembers a scene and details of 12 years earlier where he quickly looked at a book and suddenly remembers the content of it. Yeah, no. That's where you lose me. This is pure fiction. As explained, our brain is highly plastic and adapts all the time. Use it or lose it, remember? Now, whatever information up there that is not being used, well, the connections will be cut away and flushed out. It's gone. There is no way you can remember something about 12 years ago where you rapidly glanced at something. Nope. No drug in the world can help you with that. It's not gonna happen. He suddenly has impressive analytical skills. Well, I'll get back to that later. It's important. Then he starts to clean his apartment as well. feels an urge and motivation, and yes, mental clarity can easily be projected onto our immediate surroundings, so this totally makes sense. And it doesn't stop there, actually. He sits down at his desk and suddenly the words come pouring out. He calls it an unprecedented surge in motivation. Well, whatever. He writes like a maniac and 4 days later delivers his overdue book. Well, let's do the math here. Let's say he works 20 hours a day, that's 20 times 60 minutes, that's 1200 minutes times 4 days for 4,800 minutes. When you know that the word count of a book is 50,000 words or more, well, with 4,800 minutes, you only have to write like 10 words a minute. That's 1 every 6 seconds. Doable. Difficult, sure, but yeah. He also starts to work out. Well, when you know that over 50% of the neurons in our brain are used for motor control, balance and coordination, it only makes sense that an improved brain leads to a better physical shape. However, usually it works the other way around. It's by being physically active that we stimulate our brain. It's as if he enters some kind of virtuous circle here. He also learns to play the piano in 3 days. Sounds crazy, right? Well, actually, I did the same. Obviously not as good as Bradley Cooper, but when I was 42, we bought a piano for the kids. I had never played before in my life. I sat down and started learning. I was obsessed. I mean, I couldn't stop. I had to pour cold water on my wrists, on my joints, because they were hurting, but I was fascinated by it. It was like watching neuroplasticity in action. I could almost feel my neurons in my brain creating new connections whilst playing. After 3 days, just like in the film, I stopped and said to my wife, I can play piano. So yeah, it's not as impossible as it sounds.
Math became useful and fun.
I'm all in.
We also see him playing a card game at a casino, winning, of course. That one is actually totally possible if you're really good at counting cards.
All my fear, all my shyness, gone.
He says that his social fear and shyness are gone. He suddenly became this slick extrovert, whilst before he had a high degree of introversion. Yeah, I struggle with this one. You see, there is no reason to do that. Introversion and extroversion are personality traits, not skills that can be enhanced, where introversion is bad and extroversion is good. No, that just gives the completely wrong message. Unless he comes from a place where he is this naturally extroverted person who got pulled down by life and became so insecure that his extroversion got hidden below a layer of social fear and anxiety. I mean, he must have had some serious traumas there. Well, if so, let's just accept that for the sake of argument, that life has been so hard on him. Well, this drug would lower the sensitivity of his amygdala, and that combined with what I said before about the lifting of the inhibition from the ventrolateral prefrontal cortex, that's basically our inner voice, you know, our inner critic. Well, once that's gone, why not? Then we see the luxury life he gets in. You know, fast cars, beautiful women. What I noticed is the enhanced risk-taking. This guy suddenly is looking for trouble. He drives like a maniac, jumps off cliffs. Things like that. I know the writers wanted to show an increased sense of control, but that doesn't work for me at least. I mean, the enhanced risk-taking is because he becomes clearly dopamine-driven. His dopamine receptors must have become less sensitive as he's seeking increased sensation. That doesn't make sense. If his brain works so well that he senses every single detail that happens around him, well, why would he be looking for extreme sensations? Everything is supposed to be already enhanced, right? So in addition to that, he's supposed to have become smarter. Well, that's just stupid, reckless behavior. The other related thing, call it another side effect, I noticed in the film is his lower levels of empathy.
You were different before.
He's just becoming this self-centered jerk when he's on this drug. It's all about him. He doesn't really seem to care about the others. So again, this drug doesn't enhance everything apparently. It slows down parts of the prefrontal brain, the dopamine receptors get affected, as well as there's apparently a malfunction of the supramarginal gyrus, aka the empathy thing. What else do we got? Oh yeah. Learning languages without even trying. Yeah.
Since when do you speak Italian?
No, that's another one of those brain myth, effortless learning. Well, to be fair, we do see him do his jogging and learning a language at the same time. Learning a language is actually not that hard, depending on the language. For example, Latin languages are all interrelated. I speak French and learned Spanish in only 3 months, and that was before optimizing my brain. Now that I know Spanish, I would probably need less than that if I were to learn Portuguese or Italian. Note to self, try to learn Portuguese in 30 days. But like in the Matrix, uploading skills and then saying, I know Kung Fu, nah, totally impossible. Talking about the Matrix, Bradley Cooper ends up in a fight.
A fight? Don't know how to fight.
and remembers scenes from Bruce Lee films and Muhammad Ali fights and suddenly knows how to fight. Nah, same thing, no effortless learning. It's not gonna happen. Skills develop through repetition and action, not by watching films. Sorry. And then there's the whole thing with Robert Deniro. Robert, if you're watching, big fan. Bradley Cooper, with his enhanced analytical skills, is able to make millions on the stock market in only 12 days. So he attracts the attention of Robert De Niro, who plays this big Wall Street guy. He's basically the bad guy.
So, Eddie Morrow, what's your secret?
He grills him, trying to understand how he did it, and then Bradley explains that he developed this recipe, algorithm, whatever. And in the end, it all comes down to pattern recognition.
Share prices aren't really based on how a company works. It's about how mass psychology works. So if I found certain algorithms in the perception of a stock,
Pattern recognition.
well, not everybody understands the patterns.
Now, there is one thing you have to know about me, the holy grail of an enhanced brain. To me, it's not a better memory. That's just storage, and I don't care much about that. I mean, we've got USB sticks for that, right? No. To me, the one thing that makes a brain truly exceptional is pattern recognition. Being able to cut through the noise, recognizing patterns and apparently unrelated information and linking them together, that, my friends, is what a healthy, optimized brain is able to do like no other. Now again, this is what our brain does when it is in the flow state. So enhanced pattern recognition, is that possible? Well, you bet it is. Can you make millions in 12 days? I don't know, haven't been active on the stock market, but the enhancement of the skill behind it is real. So yeah, they had me at pattern recognition. In conclusion, as I said, Limitless is a very interesting film. Most of the enhanced skills featured are exaggerated versions of what is possible, but it isn't that far-fetched. The premise behind it, that we only use 20% of our brain, is flat out wrong. But if you take your brain health seriously and optimize how you use it, I've always said that learning about the brain in the end is about empowerment. Now, this film is not a documentary of what is possible, of course, because it clearly colors outside the lines. There are also the obvious malfunctions that wouldn't happen in real life, such as the dopamine receptors, sensitivity, and the low empathy. And I'm not even talking about the withdrawal symptoms, where he can't remember what happened during the last 4 days when he stopped taking pills. All that would just not happen in real life. Unless, of course, there would be a magical pill like that. And yes, some versions of it does exist. You know, the famous nootropics or smart drugs. Well, funny story here. I ended up taking some of those smart drugs myself without even knowing it. What it did to me, that just blew me away. And regardless, I never took them again. But that story is for another Brain Vlog episode. Now, don't forget to like and subscribe. We have new episodes of this vlog coming out every week. Check out some of our other episodes. And if you want the real stuff, go to brainacademy.com. Join our 250,000 students and start using your brain better. Like Bradley Cooper, but without the pills. Brain out.
Sharpen.